All right. Hey, good afternoon, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Monday, September 9th, 2024. This is your afternoon tropical update on Tropical Storm Francine, upgraded from potential Tropical Cyclone 6 this morning. Tropical Storm Francine packs winds of 60 miles an hour, located a little bit to the south of Brownsville, Texas, in the western Gulf of Mexico. Our system is quickly organizing today, expected to become Hurricane Francine sometime, even possibly late tonight, or hopefully at least tomorrow morning, and is likely to make landfall somewhere on the Louisiana coast as a powerful hurricane the middle of this week. So we got a lot to talk about, guys. Let's not waste any time. We'll come back to the satellite in a second. I want to go ahead and show you the latest cone from the National Hurricane Center, 2 p.m. intermediate advisory. We have maximum sustained winds against 60 miles an hour. That movement to the north-northwest at 5 miles per hour. The center of Francine has actually moved over a little bit today. We now have this a little bit further west than we were initially anticipating, which is why you have this weird kind of S thing going on with the Hurricane Center's cone. Looking at the watches and warnings, tropical storm watches extend from New Orleans to the mouth of the Mississippi. Or I'm sorry, Grand Isle, actually. Grand Isle to the mouth of Mississippi, which is the Louisiana-Mississippi border. Over also from Cameron to High Island, Texas. A hurricane watch is now in effect for most of the Louisiana coastline from Cameron to Grand Isle. And then we also have some tropical storm watches from Port Mansfield down to the border of Mexico and then some of the Mexican coastline as well. So Hurricane Center's overall philosophy as far as track has not changed. You will not see this cone shift dramatically anymore. There's going to be a windshield wiper effect of where exactly in this cone the storm makes landfall, but I would not expect this cone to change very much at all. The steering flow is very well set with Francine. The question is really going to be intensity and who exactly gets what and when. But overall, I think a lot of this track is fairly well set. Let's go back to the satellite presentation of Francine this afternoon. Some of the things we immediately notice is it kind of has that look. We have the shrimp look starting where we have those deep convective bands curling inward towards the center. We also have a beautiful outflow canopy in several quadrants. We also see a large amount of upper clouds being ventilated away from Francine. And this only gets more pronounced when we zoom out and we look at the canopy outflow down across the Pacific Ocean, and then back across here, we have two very distinct dual outflow channels, which means this storm is being supercharged by the atmosphere aloft, and a lot of mass is being moved away from Francine in two different directions, which is helping blow this storm up in a hurry. Francine's also over very warm water. There's a nice, very deep, warm patch of water near Brownsville, Texas, and off the coast that Francine will be traversing on her way to Louisiana. So we also are going to have the storm over a very low shear, high outflow environment with a lot of convective potential, moisture, and warm water, meaning that the potential for Francine to rapidly intensify is coming up. And if the storm is not already doing that, it very well could do that between now and Wednesday. But again, the basic concept of the track here, Francine is going to drift northwest for the most part until tomorrow morning, where we'll begin to see a definite switch back to the northeast as the storm begins to feel the influence of a mid-level high pressure ridge over Florida. This is going to nudge Francine back off to the east, and the storm is basically going to move right along this cone in some capacity and landfall in central Louisiana. The timing has moved back a little bit, and now we think the landfall will be sometime Saturday or Wednesday at about 7 p.m. or so. So that's when it looks like landfall will be, or at least in that neighborhood. Hurricane hunters have been tracking this thing today. The central pressure is lower and further west than our models were mostly anticipating, especially our global models. The last central pressure they recorded was a drop of 996, so about a 995 central pressure. And given the satellite presentation, there is no reason to doubt that Francine may be intensifying a little bit further. I think the only thing holding this off is potentially vortex alignment. I think that you're seeing the mid-level vortex about here, low levels about here. It's not quite vertically stacked just yet, and it's still going to have to undergo that process, but overall it looks pretty good. Of the regional models and the hurricane models, the HFAS seems to be handling this well. Specifically, the B run here from earlier today caught this really well. It initialized at 993 millibars, which is actually right about on point at 18Z, which is just about after this recording, or just before this recording rather. And it also shows that potential for the stacking going on where the mid-level vortex is a little broader, and then we have the low-level vortex kind of on that southern end tucked up under that convection with some deeper banding features wrapping up in here. You can see the band goes all the way back and then wraps around into the storm. So I would say the HFAS is initializing quite well today. So if we follow this model for a theory of how this landfall looks, we start moving this thing north, and actually going into tonight, the HFAS is actually forecasting a dual vortex at the surface where the two low-level centers are actually going to compete to become the main dominant feature. This is a potential thing with a rapidly developing, very young kind of tropical storm getting itself together, where it's getting these really intense bursts of convection that Francine's getting because it's being aided by the upper level winds and all the stuff we talked about. Sometimes you get multiple low level centers kind of fighting it out to see who's going to be the dominant one. I've used this analogy before, but think of the teacup ride at the fair where the whole platform is spinning and the mid-level circulation will be the whole platform. And then the little teacups are actually the low-level centers spinning. We're trying to see which one becomes the dominant low-level center. So HFAS shows this kind of working out, and then it kind of shows it going into tonight still doing so. But then by tomorrow morning, early tomorrow morning, it's stacked up, it's vertical, the pressure's dropped. We have a much more coherent vortex where a more closed low-level center is present around a much more robust kind of primitive eye or kind of early eye wall. And then we're off to the races. From there, the HFAS shows rapid intensification all throughout the day tomorrow, dropping to 976 by tomorrow afternoon, which would be well into Category 1 or Category 2 hurricane status. And the HFAS actually brings us all the way into Category 3. Now, this is where it gets interesting because Francine is enjoying a very good environment throughout the day tomorrow. It's going to have low wind shear. The trough aloft is going to be ventilating it. It's going to be helping it, not hurting it. And it's going to be in a very rich moisture environment. Now, as we go into Wednesday, this is when things change a little bit. We can see here on the GFS model that it starts bringing in dry air from the west. And as I move you forward in the GFS model in the upper level winds, you can see Francine begins to go under the harsh influence of those westerly winds. So we expect the storm to intensify quickly to rapidly through tonight and tomorrow. Wednesday, as the storm gets closer to coast, we think that the wind shear and the dry air is going to pick up, and they're going to team up to try to at least level the storm off or weaken it. This will largely be determined by how strong Francine is. If it's already a healthy Category 2 or so hurricane, it's going to be able to fight that off. If it's still a little weaker and it's still kind of getting itself going, it might actually weaken a little bit going into land. HFAS kind of shows a blend of this. This model shows the storm coming in as low as 962, which is a strong Category 3 hurricane, and then begins to weaken it a little bit as it comes in right about Vermilion Bay on about 2 o'clock on Wednesday, and then moves in from there and begins to weaken with that dry air undercutting the backside of the storm and having all that rain and wind shunted more to the north and to the east of the storm's landfall point. So overall, you can see here the Hurricane Center right now still calling 85 miles an hour. I think they're going to have to adjust that up at this point. But hopefully we see some leveling off. But folks in Louisiana, you need to be preparing for a Category 2 hurricane. We could talk about a few different types of impacts. I know we got people in Houston, so I want to mention you guys, this is going to pass to your east, and it's not going to be a direct hit. Houston will not be getting a direct hit from Francine. You know, if it winds up on that western side of the cone, your impacts are going to be worse. But I generally think you're going to be looking at a few inches of rain at most, and probably right at the coastline, maybe like Galveston, basically. And then you're looking at about a 50-50 shot of some sustained tropical storm force winds, more likely winds in gusts, very breezy day, Tuesday into Wednesday as this passes. Very rough surf and all that, but I don't think this is going to be a direct hit on you guys. And kind of the same story for parts of Mississippi, Alabama, about a 50-50 shot of some sustained tropical storm force winds, but mostly in gusts. And then more tropical storm conditions for New Orleans, and of course tropical storm to hurricane conditions for the rest of the state of Louisiana, unless you're up in like Shreveport or somewhere right along the border with Arkansas. Storm surge, NHC not screwing around, 5 to 10 feet of storm surge forecast throughout the Louisiana coastline for the most part, from Fort Porchon back to Cameron. No surprise there. That could go up even higher if this winds up being a Cat 2 or, God forbid, a Cat 3. Those numbers will go up incredibly. Storm surge prone area, no surprise, 2 to 4 feet all the way over towards Mississippi, New Orleans, and then about a 1 to 3 foot rise in Galveston Bay. There will be some coastal flooding in Houston and whatnot, but mostly this will not be a prolific storm surge event. That heavy surge will be off towards Cameron and points to the east. Rainfall, not going to be the worst rainfall maker in the world, but heavy rainfall will spread all the way into parts of the Florida Panhandle, including Mobile, Mississippi coast, and New Orleans, and then a lot of folks northward along the Mississippi River Delta will be getting this as well. This will be beneficial for a lot of folks in this area, a lot of drought in this region. Francine will help with that, but the coastline, especially in Louisiana, will experience flooding as her rains move in. And then the Storms Prediction Center getting on board just issued, actually, as we're recording this, a slight risk for Wednesday. Tornadoes, a big threat for eastern Louisiana and likely parts of Mississippi and maybe even Alabama, where tornadic rain bands and convective bands on the edge of Francine will be moving onshore and will have the ability to produce tornadoes, fast moving and hard to detect at that. So that's what I got for you guys tonight. Again, Francine likely already intensifying quickly, more rapidly, expecting tomorrow. We're expecting the storm to be a hurricane tomorrow and is expected to make landfall as a strong hurricane in Louisiana on Wednesday night. Hopefully going to be weakening a little bit, but you should be preparing for at least a category 2. All preparations need to be done by Wednesday morning. Tropical storm force winds will be on station by Wednesday mid-morning. And then from there, it just goes downhill. A good bit of rain, and the storm quickly moves off Thursday, and by Friday, this side of the Gulf Coast hair, it just becomes a rainfall event for the southeast U.S. and the Tennessee Valley. So we'll have more updates on the page, guys. I work mornings right now, so no videos until the afternoon, and then I'm at Keyser Air Force Base in Biloxi. I don't know what exactly this week looks like for us yet. Hopefully no major disruptions, but we'll have updates every step of the way on the Facebook page. So until then, that's what I got for you. Stay safe. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.